Hello, and welcome to the Learning to Slay the Beast podcast, a resilience podcast where we talk about all the challenging things that we're working to overcome, like anxiety, health, and relationship issues. My name is Sarah. So welcome to the Learning to Slay the Beast podcast. I hope that you've all had a wonderful week and that you enjoyed the first episode in our marriage and partnership series with Wendy Capewell. I'm hoping you came out with some nuggets and some really great insights the way that I did. And we're going to continue on with the series this week where we're speaking with Ingrid Galloway. So we've previously talked about some of the basics on relationship with a big focus on communication. And one of the areas that we hear a lot about and that many of us in relationship can fear is infidelity. So I wanted to dig into that one a little bit more. It's something that I get a lot of questions around, and I've had people ask and reach out if I could do an episode on. So I wanted to touch on this. So what if it happens to us? How do we move forward? And do we move forward together? Those are some of the questions that can come up in that space. So I'm happy to dig into this a little bit more as part of our marriage and partnership series with Ingrid Galloway. Ingrid is a relationship coach and a spa therapist at Kahyangan in Australia. Today, we are going to hear her thoughts on common issues in relationship like infidelity, how to build and rebuild trust, and how to make it work, but also when it might be time to move on. So keep in mind that all of this conversation is really just food for thought, definitely not meant to be personal advice. Make sure that if you are dealing with some of these issues that you are seeking professional help specific to your situation. So thanks again for tuning into part 2 of this marriage and partnership series, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Ingrid Galloway. So welcome, Ingrid, to the podcast. I'm so happy to connect with you today.
Thank you, Sarah. Really happy to jump on this recording. Yay.
That's great. So why don't we start with you providing a bit of a background about how you got into relationship coaching?
Yes, certainly. So I came to Australia, specifically Sydney, when I was 21, and to get married to my first husband. And unfortunately, after 10 years married, I left the relationship because it was an abusive relationship. And the good thing out of that is I managed to heal myself in my self-healing journey. You know, I went to see a couple of therapists, went to several self-development seminars to heal myself and change my paradigm, my perspective. And then I went to go back to college to study counseling and life coaching. And straight away, I knew that I would be a coach, not a counselor, and my niche would be in relationship. So definitely there's a lot of pain with divorce and abusive marriage. However, the good news is it brought me to my path, my purpose.
Wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and glad that you've been able to take kind of a negative situation and turn it into something that's really guiding you in your life. What are some of the common issues or challenges that you often see as a relationship coach?
Number one, I will say communication, and then number 2, intimacy, number 3, infidelity, and number 4, I will say money issues.
Ah, okay. I wouldn't have thought of the money issues one, but obviously, yeah, that's such a big issue.
Yeah.
And so one of the things you touched on that you wanted to be a coach, not a counselor, what are the benefits really to coaching versus maybe even counseling, or also trying to work through your issues as your own on your own?
So in plain language, I normally say to people who don't know the difference between counseling and coaching. Counseling typically focus on the now and the past. So it's very good for trauma, things like that. And coaching normally focus on the now and the future because we like to set goals, stepping stone towards the goals, manifesting the life that you dream about. However, because I studied both, I understand the importance of unpacking the baggage from the past, but not stay there, not stay in the victim sort of mode, but carrying people through manifesting their future that they deserve. And when you try to work issues on your own, well, you only know what you know. If you have limited knowledge, then you can only provide limited solution to your problems. And I reckon by having a coach, you will have another set of eyes and ears looking and listening objectively into your issues. Because, when you're in pain, it's really hard to be objective, isn't it? And as a coach, I am trained to ask better questions so you can tap into your inner wisdom better and quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And probably like more methodically, I would think, like a little bit more of maybe a path compared to doing it on your own.
Yeah, because when we're frantic, we just jump from one thing to another, and by having a objective point of view, then you will be a bit more organized in how you think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so I'm doing a marriage or partnership series to talk about kind of this key relationship that many of us have in our lives. And I've done a few interviews now, one sort of focused on the challenges generally and especially communication, which you mentioned. And then I wanted to move into infidelity, which we do know is very common, or I don't want to say common, but it is something we often hear about as a challenge in relationships. And I mean,
Yes.
I know there can be different types of infidelity that can occur as well. So I wondered if you could kind of talk to us a little bit more about that challenge in particular, maybe the different types. What are some of the warning signs?
Yes, certainly. So infidelity can vary from emotional or physical or both. So not all infidelity resulting in an intercourse for someone, for example, that is not your intimate partner. So cases varies definitely from one case to another case. And in terms of warning signs, for example, number one, lack of time together with your partner. Yeah, so why suddenly you don't have time for me? Number two, lack of focus during time together. So even though you're physically together, but your partner is thinking about someone else, for example. Number three, lack of intimacy. Your partner suddenly becomes cold towards you because normally, you're hot and heavy for each other, towards each other, and then suddenly, oh, ice. Number four, financial area doesn't add up, so money start to go missing because they start spending money on the other person. Um,
Mm.
Number five, keeping a lot of secrets from you. So not all the warning signs that I mentioned must be leading to signs of infidelity. Not always, yeah. You have to have an open discussion with your partner to really know that, well, they are actually cheating. Or maybe, just maybe, they are having imbalance of the sacral chakra. Uh, the symptoms of imbalanced sacral chakra will be in my book. You can read it in my book, Reclaim Your Inner Goddess. So my advice is don't jump into conclusion. You need to separate your rumination and worries with facts. So look for the proofs, the facts.
Okay. Yes. So don't, yeah, take these warning signs and just run with them for sure. It's something that you need to confirm. That makes a lot of sense. And so I guess I'm wondering, once maybe a couple has come across this, maybe it's been
Mm,
confirmed, how do you
mm.
really coach that couple to move forward, if they do say decide to stay together and try to rebuild that trust? Because I would imagine that that's probably the heart of that issue, in trying to move forward.
That's right, yes. So if you are the perpetrator, number one, it is advisable to remove situation. Well, sorry, number one would be to say sorry, to show your
Mm,
partner that you are remorseful, you regret what you did. Uh, Show that to your partner, yeah, because otherwise she or he will think, tomorrow you'll do it again.
right.
What's the point? Right. So it is advisable, secondly, to remove all situation or words that can trigger the loss of trust, such as cutting communication with the other party that you cheated with, right?
Mm,
um, and then lastly, full transparency, such as financial statements, for example, or text messages, for example. So you know each other's financial situation. You're not hiding anything from anyone. And in terms of messages as well, initially, if they ask, show me your text message because I haven't yet built my trust again with you. So be transparent here. I have nothing to hide. You're most welcome to have a look at my text message. I haven't contacted that person again. Um, and for the victim, number one, you need to allow your partner to prove themselves. If they say they're sorry, if they said they regret what they did, allow themselves to prove themselves that they are worthy of your trust again. I know it's painful, but if you keep turning it down or you keep shaming them, just put them in the guilt and shame forever, your partner will lose hope in trying to commit to earn your trust. It's tiring, right? When you
mhm.
keep being put down by someone else, who want to live in that space? And number two, you need to engage a professional to heal yourself. It's painful. Probably your partner is very triggering for you right now because they did this to you. So
Mm.
you need to engage a professional to help heal yourself. And for both, definitely you need to engage with a professional to help heal the relationship, not just the self.
Okay, so yeah, I'm hearing there's different work there. There's sort of the self work, then also the
Mm-mm.
relationship work.
Mm.
And the self work maybe for both? Like, is that part of it, figuring out
Yeah.
what happened, or I don't know.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, because say, for example, for the perpetrator, that can be because of baggage that they carry from childhood, for example. So they keep wanting to attract other people's attention, not just the partner, the official intimate partner, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
And the victim, obviously, they're hurt, angry, they're grieving. They need help, extra help to heal themselves. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, those are great tips for sure. Um, and so I guess I'm also thinking about maybe that couple that's going through something like this, or maybe even something else, and they're at that point where they're not sure about working through the issue and the relationship, or possibly looking at moving on. How do you start with a
Yes.
couple like that who's kind of in that gray area?
Yes, definitely. This happens a lot, especially in the beginning. They're in shock and they certainly question a lot of question in their mind. Not sleeping. Should I just leave them? Should I work on it? So you can start by checking the level of love that you have for each other. Some people already know cutthroat straight away. No, that's it. That is my deal breaker. Once you cheat on me, goodbye. That's it. No, no leeway about it. All right. The heart suddenly becomes super cold, and there's no way. I have no space for you in my life whatsoever anymore. That's it. Okay, that's easier, right? However, for some people, they still have a lot of love for each other. Check the level of remorse also from the perpetrator. After you find out about the infidelity, there need to be a level of guilt and shame as an indication that they regret this particular action. So then you can heal it. So if you still have a big level of love for each other, there is a better chance for you to get back together. I'm sure you have heard of the term unconditional love before.
Hmm.
Unconditional love is the hardest form of love to apply, just like a mother's love. It doesn't matter how damaged the baby is, the mother still loves the baby, right? So, how do you love a person unconditionally that has hurt you so badly? Um, it's not logical. It only can be felt. So it's very hard for me to describe it in words, right? But you can feel it. In many cases, couples stay in the comfortable zone or the friend zone for years. It's not ideal, but they are not in a ton of pain. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view it, by experiencing infidelity, it becomes the quote unquote the rock bottom moment that often slap them on the face, kick them on the butt, wake them up to reality that they both need to change and grow in love. So, yeah, deep inside, if they want to work on it, both need to want to get back into the relationship. Maybe one party wanted more than the other party because the other party, especially the victim, is still hurting, grieving, angry, right? But
Hmm.
at least there's an inclination that ideally both would like to get back together. It is a difficult decision, I know, but it is possible if you want to work on it. But if the perpetrator keeps cheating, then excuse me, I'm not a doormat.
Hmm.
That's the door. Out you go.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, when they need to move on, in my opinion, another thing is if there's violence in the relationship.
Right.
I'm not into violence, so uh, I just say, hey, let the violent person heal themselves first before having any kind of relationship. Yeah, thanks, goodbye.
Hmm.
So yeah, it doesn't matter how many years you've been together. Uh, to me, this is a key indicator of how you can sort of like determine whether you should move on or you should work on it. Yeah.
Okay. So whether it's a long time or a shorter time, that level of love is kind of the big piece.
Yeah, it's not
And
about
so,
how many years you've been together. No.
yeah, I guess that sort of leads into the next piece. I wondered if there are certain situations that, there's more likely that people would move on versus relationship. I mean, moving on, you said obviously the violent piece.
Mm.
Um, and I guess it would be then a low level of love would be the most likely that then you would kind of coach them to move.
Yeah, when they are almost immediately certain, okay, my biggest deal breaker is infidelity. That's it. There's no way I can forgive this. Uh, I have no space for you in my life anymore. That's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
then
pretty.
you should move on. That's quite cutthroat in my opinion. Then cool, no problem. Move on.
Hmm. A lot of people, be it counselors or coaches, they talk a lot about kind of doing the work and willing to work on it. And so, what does that look like? Is it a lot of conversations? Is it, some private work, like I'm thinking journaling or something? Or are there
Mhm.
specific exercises that you would coach a couple to go through? I'm just kind of wondering if you could expand on kind of the tool.
Yes, certainly. So one-on-one coaching is what I do most in this instant is yeah, I have a bag of tools in my toolbox and I will help them work into various areas, issues that they have in their life. Communication is one, for example, inner work, for example, maybe guided meditation, for example, because they're both highly stressed. So I make them relax first so they can be more open to listen and to share. Because some parties can say just like yes, no, one word
Mm-hmm.
answer, which doesn't disclose anything. So as a coach, I'm trying to help someone that is quite cold or don't know how to communicate to open up, become more relaxed and open up. So then the conversation flows, communication go better, things like this.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense, the meditation and things to kind of get things moving along and chatting to actually happen. That sounds good. I also noticed on your website that you do inner child work, and you sort of talked about this, I think, when you were talking a little bit about healing past.
Mhm.
But can you tell us a little bit more about inner child work?
Yes, certainly. Um, as I mentioned, everyone has baggage, and highly likely the baggage came from their childhood, perhaps from how they have been conditioned by their parents or their main caregiver back then. Some parents love their children and make them grow into well balanced adults, but unfortunately, some stunted their children's growth for whatever reason. And most of the time, they're not aware of it. And unfortunately, this becomes a scar or baggage that you carry to adulthood. And unfortunately, during our adulthood, we show symptoms of this. Things are triggering, we react to so many things that our partner thinks like, why the hell is he or she, do that or say that? Where did that come from, right? It can come from the childhood. So therefore, it is important to learn how to reparent yourself because you can only change yourself and you can't change the other people. If you want to change your parent or your main caregiver for whatever they have done in the past, then you are delusional because we can't
Hmm.
change other
Hmm.
people. So sometimes, going back to cheating now, cheating is driven by the wounded inner child trying desperately to get love they needed from their parents. And they keep trying different people because they didn't realize that they actually have walls up. They don't allow the love, true love from their partner to really penetrate their soul. That's why they keep looking elsewhere.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. So, kind of a way to get in there and do some of that deeper work. And so that can then manifest in our marriage and our partnership and be kind of the root of different pieces.
Definitely, yes.
That's great. Okay. And so maybe you would then coach a couple, but then also have them do inner child work sort of separately. Is that how it would go?
I like them to do it together
Ah, okay.
actually by having the partner there in the room, kind of like a triad, a triangle. So they can be the observer and someone that just provides space. Now, couples need to learn how to provide space for each other. And ideally, they learn from this coaching relationship in the room, or I do through Zoom as well, not just people coming to my clinic. Uh, you can learn how to provide space to just listen and don't listen to react or listen to respond. No, listen to understand. And there's a lot of lesson, uh, a lot of learning in that, listening to understand. Yes, to provide a safe space so your partner doesn't feel that they are being attacked all the time by you. And that's a very, very good space to learn from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I could see, in those cases of infidelity that, one partner might be more in that sort of grieving, blaming piece and so the attacking and then maybe some of that
Yes.
inner child work would maybe help to give them the why, I guess.
Yes. Yes. It's like a Pandora box. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know what you're getting until you open it. And it's like, oh wow, I just realized that this is came from this. This is why you behave this way. Mm. It holds a lot of answers to a lot of things, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And again, is that done through things like meditation or is it like a series of questions that you work through with the couple?
Through one-on-one coaching, yeah. And sometimes I give a tool of my book as well, Reclaim Your Inner Goddess, because it's full of practical tools, by using the principle of chakra. Me and my book partners will help you navigate ways to recognize the imbalances in your life, such as, how inspired you feel, the general joy and pleasure in life, satisfaction in romantic relationship, and your ability to express your emotions. A lot of men cannot express their emotions, for example, and the closest emotion that they are familiar with is anger. So when they communicate, they just angry.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And you can learn how to balance this. Yes.
Okay. No, that sounds like a really interesting book. And so Inner Goddess, but it's still for males and females then?
Yeah, Reclaim Your Inner Goddess. I mean, the seven of us wrote it originally for female, but male also can benefit, definitely.
Okay. Okay. That sounds great. Perfect. So I think, yeah, this has given us so much, especially on the topic of infidelity, but then, also just general relationship information and info on some of that inner child work. So before we wrap up, are there any other key pieces of advice or tips or tools that you would want to share?
Sure. Um, just bear in mind that sometimes separation is healthy to allow space to heal and work on ourselves, as long as the intention of the separation is not to look for another partner. That means that we need to set boundaries for ourselves. Okay, I'm allowing myself to separate for some time to heal. In terms of building trust, well, ultimately, you just need to jump off that cliff. There's not the right time, the right moment, the right action that my partner who just cheated on me to do. Ultimately, you just need to jump. There's a possibility that you may get hurt again, yes, but what if the reward of jumping open you up to a better world for your relationship and yourself? What if? So get professional help to connect more with your heart and not dwelling in your head, because when you're hurting, you're so much in your head and you can't you can't get any clarity. And another tool to get clarity between the head and the heart is meditation. By going within ourselves, being still, eventually you will get clarity with what you need to do with your relationship, especially in terms of infidelity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Are there certain types of meditation that you really like, or is it kind of just be, the type where you're sitting quietly?
I like Calm app for guided meditation.
Hmm.
That's my preference. And also, just focusing on the breath also, it's very good. Yeah, because our brain is created to think, obviously, and to keep us safe. And so just by gently, letting go of any thoughts, we still will be thinking about, different things, but gently going still and just focusing on the breath, that really helps.
hmm Yeah, and I suppose, you mentioned about jumping off and trying to build that trust. I guess that would be
Mhm.
whether you stay in the current relationship or even in a future, right? Like you would still probably have that trust issue that then you would have to eventually just try to work through, right?
That's correct, yes. Because as I said, ultimately, you just need to jump off that cliff. If you leave this current partner that cheated on you, and then you open yourself up to another relationship, if you really want a deep and meaningful relationship, you need to be vulnerable and you need to trust that new person. Uh, how to trust that new person if you've been hurt before? Sometimes you just need to take that chance,
hmm
because the
hmm
reward is you may get the biggest love of your life
Right.
if that's what you want.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's all so tricky, isn't it?
Very. The matter of the heart is very tricky,
Yes.
but it's possible. It's possible.
That's great. So thank you so much for your time. How can listeners find out more about you, whether it's online or through social media? What are the best places?
Yeah, not a problem. So I provide you with link to my Facebook. My YouTube channel has a lot of podcasts that I did with, some other guests. My website is there as well, so you can share it, Sarah, with your
Yep.
listeners. And also, I open up for your listeners to have a free chat with me. So book it on my Calendly link, and we can see whether we are a good match to work with each other.
That's great. And what is your clinic called? Your
Yeah, it is
place?
called
No, your space?
Kahyangan.
Kahyangan. Okay, great. That's
Yes,
perfect.
which means heaven. It's from
Heaven.
ancient Javanese language. It means heaven.
Wonderful. That sounds great. I'm sure people are always happy for that.
Thank you. Thank you so
Wonderful. Well, thank
much.
you so much, Ingrid, for your time and your wonderful points today.
Thank you. I hope your listeners find it useful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Ingrid Galloway for this exciting episode. I loved digging into a lot of the conversation around trust and rebuilding trust. And, we focused on infidelity, but really trust can come in many areas where it can be challenged. And I mean, she talked about different types of infidelity as well. There's beyond the one that we classically think about of, cheating. There's financial infidelity, emotional infidelity, tons of different things that can bring up trust. And I think that was a great conversation. She had some really good tips about how to kind of move forward in those situations. I also loved hearing about the inner child work. I think this is something that is really interesting. I would love to get even another person and do a full episode on inner child work. I think it's so fascinating and something that many of us could benefit from and that, certainly that we're interested in hearing more about. If you are looking to connect with Ingrid, she did mention that she can be found on Facebook, YouTube. Also, she has her website. So I'm sure if you just go to Google and you Google Ingrid Galloway, you'll be able to connect with all of these different places. But if you want to find her in a few different places, you can find her on Instagram at KAHYANGAN_wellness, as well as her website, which is ingridgalloway.com.au. And I believe she's also very available through Facebook. So feel free to reach out to Ingrid in any of those ways and connect with her following this episode. Once again, I really appreciated her time and her approach, and I think it was great to connect with her today. So hopefully you're still enjoying this marriage and partnership series. We will be back next week where we're going to focus on intimacy and learn a lot more about that from a medical doctor who changed her focus to focus on relationships and intimacy. And she's going to give us all of her insights there. So again, I hope you're having a great fall and looking forward to connecting with you again in the future. Thanks a lot and have a great week. Thank you for listening to the Learning to Slay the Beast podcast. Please keep in mind, this podcast is not intended to be medical or professional advice. If you'd like to hear more from me, you can follow me on social media, Instagram and TikTok at Sarah Lady Gluten, or Facebook, Sarah_gluten-free lady. You can also visit my website, which includes author information, speaking information, and more info on the podcast at www.se-german.com. If you like the podcast, please feel free to review the podcast on your favorite platform and also subscribe because it means that it will show up for you every week on your favorite podcast platform. Also, we've just started to have the ability to support the podcast. You can find this link in my Instagram bio or visit Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/learning to slay the beasts. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.